Welcome to Let's Talk with Teresa, and I am your host and so grateful that you're joining me on today's episode. Now, today's episode is another Flipping the Script Monday in which we love to turn perspective from lack to abundance. Well, on today's episode, this is a special one because I got to go to a wedding the other night and I met this wonderful woman named Deb Norton. And we hit it off. I'm telling you, she is someone you would feel like you've known all your life. She hands me a card with her son's information, and I look down and I see chrisnorton.org. And she begins to tell me about what happened in their life and just the beauty of what God has done in the midst. And I don't know if you've seen the People Weekly video that has gone viral of a young man and his bride on their wedding day. He gets out of his wheelchair and he gets to take a few steps toward his new bride. Well, his mom is the one I'm getting to interview today. And just to have this conversation with her was beyond life-giving. I'm telling you, if you can have a Deb in your life, you are so blessed. Well, with that said, I want to introduce you to Deb Norton on Let's Talk with Teresa Ann. To see and to hear a little bit of your story of how tragedy hits on a football field, kind of walk us through that night, even leading up to that night.
Right. So he was a freshman in college, and he played football, and he was 18 years old, and it was the 5th game of the season, October 16th, 2010, and we were all excited to go watch him play football, and it was the beginning of the 3rd quarter kickoff, and he ran down to make a tackle. And when the pile cleared, there was a player laying on the field. And of course, we're in the stands, and we didn't realize at first it was Chris. And then my husband said, "That's Chris." And he wasn't moving at all. And what had happened, he had broken his neck and suffered a spinal cord injury. We realized it was him. We got up and went to the field. And all the, the coaches and trainers were surrounding him. And I remember the opposing coach came up and put his arm around me and said, everything's gonna be okay. And we were talking, we bent down and talked to Chris because he wasn't moving, and he's, of course frightened, and there was not, no movement whatsoever. And so they had to cut his helmet off and get him in a neck brace, and then the ambulance took him to the local hospital, and they called in a helicopter, and then the helicopter flew into Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and we had to follow in the car.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So in this moment in time, as you're in the car, what are you doing as parents?
Well, we're praying, and we're just, and we're in shock. We, and my husband had to pull over and let my daughter drive because he just, he couldn't think straight. We couldn't think straight. And the hospital's calling us and letting us know he made it, he's stable. We just didn't know. We didn't know where we were going. Okay. We're in Iowa. We're driving to Minnesota. It's like an hour away. Oh wow! It was, and then the really kind of a cool thing when we pulled up to St. Mary's in Rochester, there was a gentleman there in a Luther sweatshirt who had been at the game, who lived in Rochester and knew we wouldn't know where we were going. No way. And he found out everything, and he met us there and took us to the critical care unit.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that something?
Wow.
People just came out of the woodwork and helped us the whole way.
Just you sharing that alone reveals to me how God does go before us.
Yes.
How he had all of that, even though we're why? I'm so thankful that you're willing to share this story, because I'm sure that you're having to relive it. Yeah. Every time you talk about it.
I do, but when I relive it and I talk about it, I feel like if I can help one person get through their crisis, their tragedy, their tough point in their life, then you know what? It's okay. I can do that.
Wow, that is so incredible. So now you found out what's happened.
Right.
You know the diagnosis.
They told us that he'd have a 3% chance of having any movement below his neck.
Wow.
And it was devastating news. Devastating. And I remember went to surgery. They said the surgery would be, 4 to 6 hours. And I remember being in the waiting room, and I had to leave. And I just started walking the hallways of St. Mary's, and I saw signs for a chapel. And I'm like, I'm going to go find that chapel. Well, I ended up in the chapel, and when you think of a hospital chapel, you think of a small place.
Yes.
This is a huge chapel.
Really?
It's a church. It's just St. Mary's Church. And I sat down in a pew, and I looked up, and there was a picture of Jesus holding a man that was crippled. And I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Whoa. I'm like, I was meant to find this chapel and sit in this pew, and I was meant to look up. And it gave me this, this peace. Like, I'm not in this alone.
Yes. Oh.
And so that helped me get through that. The next day, he could shrug his shoulders, which was a good sign because that was already below the injury point. He eventually got some feeling back in his arms. He wasn't feeling anything in his legs, and on Thanksgiving morning he wiggled his big toe, and we're like, oh my gosh, he's gonna be okay. He's still in a wheelchair. He still needs help, but he can feed himself. He can.
Wow.
He can brush his teeth. He can. He walked across the stage for his college graduation.
Oh my gosh.
He walked for his wedding with help. So he has worked so hard every single day to get to that point.
As parents, sometimes we want to coddle our kids just because we're like, oh my God, I would rather it be me than you.
Absolutely.
How did you rise up out of that and say, you are going to do this? Because when I heard your story last night about how you just fought for him.
Yes, I did.
Do you feel like, too, that when you fight for someone that they have to be willing to fight with you, or were you able to encourage him even when he didn't want to fight?
This is the thing about Chris.
Okay.
He was a little guy.
Okay.
He was just, he loved sports. He was a good athlete. And so my husband would coach him, and he'd say, he's right-handed, Dad, I'm going to make 10 left-handed layups in a row. And my husband would say, because he coached varsity basketball, he said, I have varsity basketball players that can't do that. And Chris, as a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, was like, I'm not leaving the gym till I do that. And it would...
Wow.
Yeah. And so then as he got older, and he was in high school, and his basketball coach at that time, he would say, Chris, practice is over. And Chris was like, I just need to shoot a little bit more. So he started locking up the basketballs. He'd take his basketball, he'd lock it up. Well, he didn't know, but Chris brought his own basketball. So Chris would take his own basketball and start shooting, and then the coach had to shut the lights off. He would shut the lights off in the gym, so Chris had to go home. Like, he just was determined to just be the best at everything he did. And in school, he was a really good student. I mean, he never had homework because when he was at school, every minute he was working. Every minute in study hall, if there was 5 minutes at the end of the class, because his goal was not to do it at night. And so he didn't waste time. He just didn't, he was just, that was just his personality.
Wow.
And,
Character.
It paid off. He was good in sports, good in school. And then this happens to him as an 18-year-old. He's got the world, ahead of him, and this happens. And, my husband and I had to do some self-talk between the two of us because we were faced with a tough situation.
Right.
Here's your 18-year-old son. We have an older daughter and a younger daughter. And we said, you know what? We've got to be tough for Chris, and Chris has to get tough. Because even though this is life-changing, we're going to have a great life. And our girls are going to have a great life.
Wow.
And we are not going to let this destroy us or our family. And we're going to figure out how to get it through this. And one day at a time, that's what we did.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just stop right there, y'all. I mean, that right there is not just personality, that's character. That is integrity. That is someone who just doesn't see the bull in front of him. He just sees how, like, I'm going to get through the bull. I don't, whether it's over him or around him or, you know, go right through him. That right there speaks to me when I want to give up, when I don't want to do something. And here is this young man, here is his family that everyone is saying they've lost everything. And here you all are saying we have so much to gain.
Right.
We have so much to gain. So what happened in that moment when you decided that?
You know, we just went into Chris's room and we vowed to ourselves we would not let anything negative penetrate us. Now, we had bad news. We had things we didn't want to hear.
Right.
We had all that stuff. We had to deal with that. And it was hard.
Right.
You know, my husband and I we'd have our little meltdowns separately, so we would lift each other up, but we never showed that to Chris.
Wow.
And we would say, Chris, you know what? This is going to be tough. It's going to take a lot of work. But you're going to have a great life. No matter what your level of recovery is, no matter what you can and can't do physically, you are going to have a great life. And we are too. And we told the girls that, and we're like, all right, things are different now, but things are still good. They're going to be good. We have to get through this.
Now, something that you and I talked about last night that goes along with this conversation is that one of your daughters...
Daughter, Alex, she was in nursing school at the time in Iowa. And every weekend, she would come up to the hospital and spend... Because we always spent the weekend together as a family. And he was in the hospital for 4 months.
Wow.
And then then we moved to the Ronald McDonald House for 3 months. So we were in a different city 3+ hours away from our home for 7 months.
Wow.
Off and on. You know, my husband and I took turns going back and forth. But our girls came up every weekend. And Alex, the nurse, graduated from nursing school. And she said, because I said, Chris is going to go back to college. My husband and I were bound and determined he would go back in the fall.
Okay.
And she goes, when he goes back to Decorah, to college, I want to move there and help him. She goes, I just graduated. I don't have a job. I don't have any reason why I can't do that.
Wow.
That was such a blessing. We would have never asked her to do that, but she wanted to do that. And so she got an apartment there. He lived in the dorm with his buddies. She drove him to therapy back and forth, helped him with laundry or whatever he needed.
Wow.
And did that for 2 years. And finally, after 2 years, she's like, Mom, I hardly even see Chris anymore. He doesn't need me. You know, I'm like, she's like, I'm moving back home.
Oh,
so
my goodness.
that's what she did.
Oh, my God. I just love your family.
Yeah. And then when she went back home, her job that she got at the hospital, at Mercy Hospital in Des Moines, was in the neurotrauma ICU. And the reason she picked that was because she knew that's where she could make the biggest impact from her experience that she had with Chris. So,
that is just amazing.
Yeah. So that's what she does. And our youngest daughter, she was a freshman in high school at the time.
Wow.
She was going to play basketball, and she said, I want to be with Chris on the weekends. I'm not going to play basketball. We tried to talk her into it. It's like, you need to keep living your life.
Yeah.
She's like, no, I want to come. So every Thursday after school, her and I would drive up to Minnesota. She missed every Friday of school for months. Wow. And the school worked with us, but that's where we wanted to be together as a family. And the girls and I would come into the room. The girls would run to Chris's bed and hop in bed with them. He couldn't wait for Thursday nights when we all came up. And they hopped in bed. We'd get food. We'd watch a movie. We'd play games. I mean, we made our time together fun.
Oh,
there was no sadness.
Yeah,
it was fun.
It was fun.
It was.
I mean, and it reveals the joy of the Lord. It will be our strength.
Absolutely.
And you guys made up your mind, made up your heart and mind.
Day one, we made up our minds.
That is so, that is bold inspiration. right there. That reveals the goodness of God right there.
Oh, we could not have, without our faith and without his hand in this, families crumble from these things. This will ruin, this sort of a thing can ruin a family. And you have to fight against it. You have you have to fight.
Yeah. Now, there was something you said last night in which you, literally was like, Chris is going to live in a dorm, right?
Absolutely.
And he's going to be there with his friends, and his friends are going to take care of him. We're going to pay them.
Right.
And can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So he comes home the end of May. Okay, so back to
from the hospital.
From the hospital in Minnesota back to, we live in Altoona, Iowa, and close to Des Moines. And so he came home, and we made our living room into his bedroom.
Okay.
And we had our nephew from Iowa City come and kind of live with us to help him.
Okay.
And so we could, because we had to work, and we needed someone with Chris. And then that's when I said, all right, you're going back to school in the fall. I know we have a long recovery. I know, you're going to need a lot of help, but we're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
So I started talking to his friends, and I said, hey, Chris comes back in the fall. He's going to need help, getting to bed at night, getting up in the morning, getting to class. He's going to need help, but we want to hire you guys and to do this. And they're like, yeah, that would be great. Wow. They were so excited that because they loved him.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
He was only there for a few weeks, but they were buddies. Oh. And they're like, yeah, and we paid them. It's like, hey, you can go work in the cafeteria, or you can help Chris and get paid. And so they were like on board, and he had this whole lineup of friends that just helped him on a daily basis, whatever he needed.
Oh my God.
I know.
God.
And they're such great friends now. I mean, they still figure out plans together and vacations together. And,
I love it.
And you know what? It was so wonderful for these boys, to do this. They have and they've even said, we have a whole new perspective on people with disabilities, just kindness in general, just being a helper.
Yes.
And they said this has been invaluable to us as young men to do this for Chris.
So this is what I love about this story, and I know there's so much more, but so often I will hear, and I've even said it myself, the enemy, the enemy, the enemy.
Yes.
And I think that almost allows us to stay where we are and to regress. So how did you not fall into the trap of that?
Well, I'll tell you, when you feel yourself getting kind of sucked in a little bit, when you feel yourself kind of getting discouraged or whatever, you have to start listing and remembering all the blessings, all the things that, hey, this happened, that allowed this to happen, and then you were able to do this. And sometimes you have to remind yourself.
Yeah, that's good.
Because you can just look at, this thing didn't go right. Well, you know what?
Yeah.
Life doesn't always go
That's right.
We have to kind of get over that. It might be magnified. You're a little bit scarred when you've gone through a tragedy. You might be able to get pushed down a little quicker. But that's when you've just got to, you got to stand up and you've got to say, I am not going to let the enemy let me think like this, because this is not right.
Oh, I love that.
This isn't really reality.
Okay, so y'all, listen. I mean, think about this. She's literally speaking Philippians 4:8. Think on these things that are noble, pure, of good report. Like, you literally are a walking Bible without even quoting scripture. I just love it. And it's the goodness of God that leads men back to Him. So your story, your testimony of your family and what they've been through, what's unfolding even still.
Oh, yes.
I mean, gosh, your husband and your son wrote a book, their first book.
Yes.
I say first because there's another one coming out that is based on Chris and his wife, Emily.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's called you can actually pre-order it, right?
Yes, yes.
And it'll be available July 2019. And it's called The 7 Longest Yards. And in that, you will find the actual link so you can watch that video of when he's walking to his wife in the wedding. And so, what was the first book that they wrote? What is it titled, and what is it based on?
So the first book, well, okay, so let me back up just a little bit.
Please do.
So when Chris was in the hospital,
Okay.
We set the Caring Bridge. And the Caring Bridge allows your family and friends to know what's going on. And so my husband, who is a very good writer, he wrote on Caring Bridge every single day. Okay? So people had said to him, you should write a book. This is unbelievable.
Phenomenal.
And he would quote scripture, and he would say how God made a difference in our day that day. And he would talk about this. So about a year after Chris's injury, we got contacted by a woman who said, I was doing research on a book, and she's a writer, and I came across your Caring Bridge site, and I read every single entry, and I want to write a book. And I'm going to do it for you. You work with me, and I don't want any money. I just want to do this for you.
Oh my gosh.
And so Christy Hayes is her name, and she flew to Iowa, and she spent a week with all of us and interviewed everybody, and she wrote this book, and it's called The Power of Faith When Tragedy Strikes.
Wow.
And what it is, it's a father-son book. So one chapter is my husband's perspective, and then the next chapter is Chris's perspective about the same thing. And it's fascinating how his perspective and my husband's perspective sometimes are the same and sometimes they're completely different about what was going on.
Oh my gosh.
And so the whole book is like that.
Oh!
Yeah. It's very, very good.
So can this be found on Amazon?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. You can be ordered online.
Okay.
On Amazon. And then
is there a website?
So Chris has a website.
Okay.
And it's chrisnorton.org.
Okay.
And so that has, and he's a motivational speaker, and there's all kinds of things on this website, but you can find the book there too.
Okay.
And so then this new book is about him and Emily, his wife, how they met, how their story together, because they have quite a story too. And so that's the second book that will be out in July.
So is Emily the one walking with him on the stage?
Yes.
During his graduation?
So Chris goes back to college.
Okay.
And he does the college boy thing for a couple years, and then he meets Emily.
Okay.
And Emily worked with him and his trainers to help him be able to walk across the stage at graduation, because that was his goal. So we knew this was happening. The day before his college graduation, he proposed to her.
What?
Yes, in Decorah. So he proposes to her, and he likes to say, I was more nervous about that proposal than I was walking across the stage the next day at graduation.
I saw that on the interview. That was so cute.
Yes.
Oh.
So that's how that happened. And then...
So wait, were they interested in each other during the helping?
They met after his injury.
Okay.
They didn't know each other until he was... I believe he was a junior in college.
So when they met, did they meet upon doing the rehabilitation?
No.
Okay.
No. They kind of met on Facebook, mutual friends.
Okay.
And she was going to Iowa State. He was in Decorah. And so he had his buddies. He had buddies that went to Iowa State. He had some of his Luther buddies taken to Ames. And they met up in a park or whatever. And it was just... that was it.
And then from then on, she just said, I'm going to work with you. I'm going to... Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Your family is just amazing. Your family reminds me of the Holy Spirit. Just coming alongside.
Well, I'll tell you, my husband and I say, we wish we would have known then in the hospital when we were going through the early phases, if we could just have had a glimpse of Chris's future. But we don't get glimpses.
Yeah.
We have to have faith.
Yes.
So we had to have faith that his future was going to look really good. And gosh, Emily was just a blessing. I mean,
my
she's
gosh.
passionate. Her passion is fostering, foster care, foster children,
wow.
adoption, helping these kids and their foster parents. They live what they believe.
How old are they?
Oh my gosh, they're 26 years old. And
And they just got married.
and they got married last April.
Last April.
Yes.
What's can't?
Oh no, yeah, no. We're pretty feisty.
Yeah,
it's like, no, we're gonna figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. So I think even too, like that coaching in your husband and you coming alongside your husband. There's, can't's a bad word, I'm sure, in your family. Did you quote, I can do all things through Christ a lot in your family?
Oh, absolutely. And it's like, okay, don't tell me you can't do something.
Yeah.
I know you can. When Chris does his motivational speak, one of his lines is, a lot of times when people say they can't, what they really mean is they won't.
Wow.
So we have to really think about that.
Ooh.
You probably can do that. Or are you willing to do that?
Mm.
So that's what he says. And you know what? I think he's got a good point.
Very good point.
And he's, we've traveled. Things are more complicated. Traveling with someone in a wheelchair that needs help. I don't care. We don't care. We figured it out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So really, if you think about it, you guys through this situation have counted it all joy when you fall into various trials, for you know what the purpose is for.
Absolutely.
For the persevering.
Right.
Right. Wow.
And and I don't want people to think this was easy.
No.
This was hard. This
Yes.
was, there were a lot of tears and sleepless nights, but you know what? Chris did not see those tears. He did not know. We of course, if he had tears or upset, it was moments, it was a down hour, but his days were good. He talked himself out of it. We talked him, we all rallied around each other. It's like, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel a little sorry for yourself for a few moments.
Right.
And it's like, all right, that moment's over.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's go.
That was kind of our attitude.
So you also mentioned something yesterday that was really, really good, and I totally agree with you. Sometimes people will ask, if there's anything I can do for you, will you let us know? Or, what can I do? And can you answer that?
You learn a lot when you go through this. And a couple things I like to tell people is when you're going through a crisis, when you're having whatever that crisis is, it's health, it's a family member, it's depression, it's whatever, let people help you. When you open that gift on Christmas Day, that's really great. It's nice to have a gift. But when you have your child or your husband or your friend open the gift you gave them, that's when you get the pure joy.
Yes.
So let them give you that gift of helping. Take that gift. Don't say no. And the other thing is, if you ask somebody, hey, let me know if I can do anything for you, their response is going to be, I'm fine. Okay. But do they call you? They don't. So it's better just to do something. Whether it's just show up with a meal, show up with, whatever, come and shovel their driveway if it's snowy. We had friends that showed up at our house and our garage door wasn't working, and they knew we weren't home, and they fixed our garage door.
Oh my gosh.
They painted my kitchen. My kitchen was like, I was in the midst of life, and this happened, and they came in, they painted my kitchen for me.
Oh, wow.
We had to do some adjustments to our house when Chris came home. We had volunteers that volunteered time and labor and materials, and they, made our bathroom a roll-in bathroom,
Wow.
So you have to say yes to that. Let them help you. And also you have to be that person. Just show up on the door and just say, hey, I'm here to clean your kitchen for you.
Wow.
I know you've been gone. I know you need this.
Wow.
And just do it.
Just
don't ask. Just do something, even if it's just little.
And I like what you said too, like even if it's a case of water.
A case of water.
I mean, something
drop it off.
That you like. Sometimes we think it has to be something really lofty,
right?
And then we don't do anything because we feel like overwhelmed. Like, what can I do? But it's like anything.
You don't even have to ring the doorbell. Just put the case of water down with a note, thinking of you today. You know, I mean, just anything.
I love that.
Make it simple.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you get like, you overthink it. Don't overthink it. Just go do something.
So what I love about this whole conversation, from the moment that this, what seemed like, I mean, a tragedy, right? And you guys are still believing for miracles.
Absolutely.
And you've already seen unfolding miracles take place.
Right.
What would you say to someone right now that is going through, and the person that they're going through it with, they just don't want to fight.
Yeah.
They've given up.
Right.
Being that was unfamiliar for you guys, what would you say to that person? Either the one that's going through it, like literally not able to move, what would Chris even say to them?
Right. I think, because Chris does some of this, he'll talk to parents, he'll talk to maybe, it's another kid that was injured doing whatever. He'll say, life might look different, but life's still going to be good. We all have this picture of what our life is going to look like, our future, our children's future. Yeah. We all have this picture, and sometimes that doesn't work out. Most times, there's a bump in the road.
Yes.
Some bumps are bigger than others.
Yes.
But you know what? Life is still going to be good. You might go about it a different way. It might look different, but you're going to be okay.
Wow.
It's going to be okay. But you know what? You have to look at every day. You can't just go here. You got to really take care of today. If you take care of today, then tomorrow will take care of itself.
Yeah.
And Chris says that in his speech. If you take care of today, then tomorrow will take care of itself.
That's so good.
But you got to stay in the moment, and you got to work hard today so the next day is better and every day is better.
So it's almost like upkeeping the garden of right now and not going, well, the garden is going to die soon because, the winter's coming.
Right.
But literally just
be in the garden today.
Be in the garden today.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And I think you have to stay in the moment, and you just have to make today the best day you can make. Make it, and then the next day you make it the best day, and then a month down the road, look at you've had 30 great days of doing something.
Gosh, that's amazing. So you also said to me yesterday that you guys have started a foundation.
Yes.
Okay, can you share with my audience what the foundation is and what it's about?
So, when we're going through something, when we look at ourselves, we're so focused on us. How did this affect us? What am I going to do? You actually feel better when you care for somebody else.
Good.
So, so Chris decided that he had some opportunities of, good health care and good equipment for rehab, but not everybody has that. He wanted to figure out a way where he could give back to other people. So it was his idea to start this foundation, and what we do is we raise money, and then the money goes to hospitals or rehab facilities, or we have a wheelchair camp that we fund to help other people, to help these places buy equipment that will help in the rehab of someone with a spinal cord injury, a stroke, MS, whatever the neuromuscular deficiency is.
Right.
We want to help with equipment. So our foundation has raised around $800,000, and we have, most of it's in the Des Moines area.
Okay.
And the hospitals, there's a child serve, there's an On With Life that deals with brain injury and spinal cord injuries, Des Moines University. We have given all that money away.
Wow.
And they have, their facilities have greatly improved.
Oh my gosh.
For other people that have had this, they don't have to go out of state now, or they don't have to go away. They can stay in their home area and get this great rehab.
That is incredible. So how can people give to that foundation?
So if you go to chrisnorton.org,
okay.
He's a motivational speaker, so you'll see his motivational speaking, you'll see his book, you'll see our events, you'll see how to donate to the Chris Norton Foundation.
Okay.
And this year we have a new thing besides giving back to the rehab facilities. we are going to send 25 kids and their parents to camp. And there's a national wheelchair camp in Minnesota, and they do a national wheelchair camp, but there's going to be an extra week, the Chris Norton camp.
Oh my goodness.
Where we pay for, because you know what, the parents need a camp. Parents need camp too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So they get to go watch their child have fun at a camp, and it's from 5 years old to 25 years old. And
really?
So that's what we're doing. So we're so excited about that this year. Yeah.
I just love this.
And it's life-changing, these kids that go. Because they see they can have fun, they meet friends, they see that they can do things like everybody else. But just with a little different help in a little different way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I get to know you. Like, I'm so honored and just blown away. I know I'm going to be watching this video quite often, like, especially if I'm having a bad day, like, no, click play. But I have one last question for you, because I could ask you tons more. I mean, our conversation just could lead to so many different things.
I know.
But, and I asked you this yesterday, you know, if, being that you've got your family and your son and his wife have written collectively 2 books.
Yes.
And there's probably going to be more.
Yes, who knows?
But if you were an inspirational book, what would the title be and why?
You know, I love that question.
Okay.
And I could come up with maybe like 5 different titles.
Okay.
But I think the one title that I would say is it's going to be You Can. You can, because I have people that would say to me, I don't know how you did it. I could have never done that. Of course you can.
Wow.
You can, because what choice do you have? You have to get up, you have to stand up, you have to be there for you, for your child, for your family, for your friends. People are watching you. You're a role model. And you have to show how God works in your life. And if you say it, but you don't act it, then do you really believe it yourself?
Wow.
So You Can is the name of my book, because you can do it, you can stand up, you can do whatever you put your mind to doing.
Wow.
So that's my book.
You are evidence of you can, for sure.
But there's one more thing about this title.
Yes, tell me.
Can is Chris's initials. Christopher Anderson Norton. Who knew when he was a baby that those initials would be so significant for him as an adult? Yep.
Did you see that from the beginning, like after, you know, everything had happened? Was that, or have you guys always said that?
We've always, because he's such a character and so, you know, feisty and would do whatever, like, wow, his initials are good, like, you can do anything. You know, that's what we always tease about.
I love that.
So anyway, that's my book.
Oh my gosh. Well, if you ever write it, I want it, and I'm gonna like.
I'll send you a copy.
Okay, good. Well, I want to say thank you so much for joining me on Let's Talk.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to Let's Talk with Teresa Ann. I also want to say thank you in advance for liking, sharing, and subscribing to both my YouTube and podcast channels. And if you haven't done so already, if you could go to our iTunes on Let's Talk Studio, that would be so great if you could write a review.